The escrow term is thrown around all the time in real estate. I figure it's a big one that we should talk about. I'm going to fill you in on what the term escrow means and what that looks like throughout the process. Follow along. The escrow process in real estate refers to a neutral third party holding and managing funds and documents related to a real estate transaction. Now, this is between the buyer and the seller. So they are the middleman between that buyer and seller. They don't have any preference towards either party. Now, the purpose of using an escrow service is just to ensure that all the obligations per the contract are fulfilled and all parties have fulfilled their obligations in managing that transaction. Now, way back in the day, they used to do this through a real estate firm. They used to use a trust account on their own, but there was some sort of conflict of interest. They didn't want the opposing party to hold the earnest money, and it just came to be a hassle. And that is where title companies have really proven their worth, and they are absolutely crucial in my opinion for a multitude of reasons. Now, there's a few steps in the escrow process, the first of which is opening up an escrow account. So once you've identified a home, you've came to an agreement with the seller on the terms and conditions and purchasing that home, that's when the title process starts. So the realtor is going to open up an escrow account with whichever title company it is. There's quite a few title companies out there. They do very similar things. A lot of it is relational based, but they are worth their weight in gold because they really go the extra mile to make sure that the whole transaction is transparent. The title company is also going to hold all the funds for the transaction. So if we use earnest money as an example, once you submit an offer on a home, you tell the seller that you're going to deposit, say, $1,500 worth of earnest money. Well, we're not going to give that to the seller, of course. We want a neutral third party that can hold those funds to ensure that the funds don't get released to either the seller or back to the buyer. Typically, when the earnest money is reimbursed in the event that the transaction fell apart for various reasons, let's just say inspection, then the title company will reissue a check back to the buyer to reimburse those earnest money funds. There have been times in the past where both the seller and the buyer don't agree that the earnest money gets released or funds in general get released. So again, it's important to have that neutral third party middleman just to discern what the contract stipulates so that they can be the appropriate means of taking action in that regard. Now, it's not always about earnest money, of course. The title company is going to be holding funds in any amount for that particular transaction. So if you buy a house cash for $500,000, you're going to write a check or provide verified funds for that $500,000, and then the title company is going to be holding those funds until that transaction is complete. Now, the title search is also a big step in the escrow process. The title company is going to run a title search. They're going to track from day one. They're going to go all the way back to when the house was built, and they're going to verify ownership every step of the way. So if the house was sold 17 times, we're going to see 7 different transactions in the title commitment. Now, verification of ownership is incredibly important, but so are the liens and easements that the title commitment is going to reflect as well. So for example, if your neighbor might have an easement through your property or your potential property, and that's going to be reflected on the title commitment. It's important to pay attention to that title commitment. It's going to give you a lot of information and history on the property. Now, there could be some red flags on that title commitment as well that we really want to pay attention to. It's going to show all the liens on the property. So for example, if you purchase the home through Wells Fargo and there's a $200,000 lien, they're going to make sure to appropriately pay off whoever's in that first position. So if there's a lien on the property, they're going to pay off that lien through the proceeds of the transaction. Child support is a really big one. It'll reflect on the title commitment that the owner owes X amount, and that owner is going to have to pay those through the proceeds of the home sale. Now, once all the contingencies are satisfied, so let's just say you get through the inspection and you come to a resolution on repairs. You get through the appraisal, and the house did appraise for what you are purchasing it for. You get through the insurance contingency, you're comfortable with that insurance amount. That's when the title company is going to schedule a closing. The title company is going to be that third party. They're going to set up separate appointments typically. Sometimes it's intermingled, but most of the time it's separate appointments. So the buyer and the buyer's agent along with the title officer are going to sign their documentation in a window. Typically it takes about 30 to 45 minutes. And then the seller and the seller's agent are going to meet at the title company, and they're going to sign all their documents. Now, once the title agency has all signed and required documents, that's when they're going to take that information, run it down to the courthouse, and record that deed. And the deed is the transfer of ownership. I can't stress enough, real estate, especially residential real estate, is a very emotional process. So to have an arm's length transaction, to have that middleman or that third party, neutral third party, is highly important. They're going to be the ones that they strip all of the emotion out. They just want the buyer to fulfill their obligations. They want the seller to fulfill all their obligations. And then they're just the middleman that get to smile at the end after all that hard work. At that time, that's when you get keys and you get to enjoy your new home right after that. I hope you found that information valuable. So thanks for watching the video. Please follow along. Please subscribe as always. I appreciate your time and I hope you enjoyed it.